The European Union holds the firm advantage in post-Brexit trade talks, a political expert has warned, who predicted if an agreement collapses, the UK will be forced back to the negotiating table once the consequences of a no-deal outcome are realised. The UK and EU are in the midst of an 11-month Brexit transition period, with Britain remaining bound to the EU's single market and customs union rules until the deadline on December 31, 2020. Negotiations between the two sides on trade and the future relationship began in March, but little progress, with the negotiating teams led by David Frost and Michel Barnier blaming each other for refusing to relent on several key red lines. Both sides remain hopeful of agreeing a deal in time for it to be ratified by the European Parliament in October and complete in time before the end of the transition period. Last month Mr Frost warned Conservative Party MPs Britain will win just 60% of its objectives in any trade deal with the EU. He is reported to have privately made the assurance to Tory ministers after another week of failed negotiations. But Wyn Grant, British political scientist and professor of politics at the University of Warwick, warned the pressure is now on the UK as the clock ticks down to the possibility of a no-deal outcome. He told Express, "The EU holds most of the cards, so 60% of objectives being met in any trade deal with the EU may be a realistic assessment, although a little pessimistic. The EU is unlikely to be that phased by a UK withdrawal from the talks, as they would expect the UK to return once the consequences of a no-deal became evident after January 1. It is difficult for the UK to take a harder line when it is going to look like a bluff. The EU market matters more to the UK than the other way round. Both sides would actually prefer to strike an agreement, but there is a real risk that they won't." Ben Harris-Quinney, chairman of the Bow Group think tank, also fears the UK is edging towards a no-deal departure from the EU, with little sign of either side backing down from crucial red lines. The most prominent of these appears to be the EU's demand fishermen from the continent have access to British waters following Brexit. Others include the level playing field, state aid, financial services and the role of the European Court of Justice, ECJ. Mr Harris-Quinney warned if Boris Johnson does cave into demands from the EU, he would be guilty of a catastrophic weakness of leadership that could see voter support plummet below levels seen under the premiership of Theresa May.